Today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to help you decide whether the Homeworld Remastered Collection is the right space RTS game for you. By the end of this video, you'll know what it's like to actually play this game to help you make an informed decision. I'm not a Homeworld fanboy, just a strategy fan who took a chance on this game, so I could report back with my findings to you, my fellow generals. First, give me 45 seconds to describe the game in a nutshell. If you're still intrigued after that, we'll go into more detail about how the game plays, the mechanics, and how it compares to other games you may have played. If you took the epic fighting for the survival of your species story from Halo and combined it with the grand spaceship battles and movie-like camera angles of Star Wars Empire at War, you'd get Homeworld. A legend in the gaming industry, its superbly executed storytelling isn't just good by RTS standards, it's right up there with the best of them. A traditional RTS in that you gather resources and build a fleet of complementary ships, your gigantic mothership acting as your jack-of-all-trades base of operations. But the game's movement in 3D space and battle mechanics meant Homeworld was ahead of its time and makes the game stand out from the crowd even to this day. The original Homeworld was created by Relic way back in 1999. Yes, that Relic. Followed by Homeworld Cataclysm in 2000, then Homeworld 2 in 2003, and finally Homeworld Deserts of Karak in 2016. The Remastered Collection, however, was created by Gearbox Software, released in 2015, and contains updated versions of Homeworld and Homeworld 2, along with the original versions of those games. The remaster has received a biblical number of very positive reviews on Steam. It's a polished product which all but the lowest spec machines should be able to run fine, and worst case, you can always play the originals, which some would say are better than the remaster. For the most part, I'll refer to Homeworld 1 and 2 as a collective, as they are very similar, but I will highlight core differences between them too. Before diving into the detailed mechanics, let's examine the tutorial, which is broken down into several short instances showing you the basics. RTS fans will find this a breeze until you have to move your ships up or down in 3D space. It's one of the main appeals of the game, and it isn't that bad once you get the hang of it, but it does take some getting used to. You'll be finished with the tutorial and firing up the campaign in no time, but you'll still have much to learn. Fortunately, the Homeworld campaign is incredibly well paced, with missions designed to help you hone your skills before culminating in a satisfying, show me everything you've learned, epic battle towards the end of the story. A simple but oh so effective structure straight out of the 90s. Just to clarify, although the setting is in space, this isn't about humans defending Earth. The species and planets are unique to Homeworld. I don't want to spoil it, but the campaign is all about the rise and fall of empires, thousands of years of forgotten history, and the survival of your species. So what's it like to actually play Homeworld? Let's take an overview of the mechanics before diving into more detail. Homeworld's missions follow a similar pattern. You hyperspace into a hostile area, send out resource collectors to nearby asteroids while expanding your fleet. Your fleet carries over from the previous missions, making it extra painful when you lose that heavy cruiser. Broadly speaking, ships are categorized into fighters, corvettes, frigates, or capital ships. The counter system is intuitive. Usually the bigger ships are strong against those that are smaller, with a few exceptions, such as capital ships being weak against bombers. You gain access to new ships as you progress through the campaign, and once you have your fleet, you send them out to achieve a range of objectives, usually blowing something up. While this is happening, you construct reinforcements using your mothership, which can't move in Homeworld, but can move, painfully slowly, in Homeworld 2. Control groups are essential to maintain order once your ships start dogfighting in a swirling mass of bombs and lasers. Micromanagement of units is a big part of Homeworld. The maps are big, empty 3D spaces, and although your fleets will never be gigantic, you'll often have a similar number of units to Empire at War to command. Waypoints and attack moves are of course present here, but the tricky part is when you need your units to go up or down. This isn't an essential part of combat, but it can be useful and fun when you get the hang of it. When you start feeling overwhelmed, hit spacebar and the Sensors Manager will give you a far broader view of the battlefield, while still being able to issue commands to your units that look like little squares and triangles. It's also a great way to travel from one side of the map to the other quickly. It's possible to select several of your units and order them to attack several enemy units by control dragging across the units you want them to attack. Your ships are pretty good at targeting enemies they're strong against, but won't focus fire effectively. Using G as a guard command is a useful way of providing fighter escorts to ships that need protection. When you select multiple ships, you can order them into a formation or stance. These appear to have been dumbed down for the remastered version, which is a shame, but they're an optional extra for those who want to maximize damage output, but they're by no means essential to complete the campaign. All of Homeworld is in space. Your base is your mothership, which is where you deposit resources, store your smaller ships, and create new ones. This isn't a base builder's paradise, but particularly in Homeworld 2, it's fun to upgrade your mothership and also carriers which are also able to create new ships, but the game is pretty basic in that regard. Resource management is limited in Homeworld. You have one finite resource which is harvested from positions dotted around the map. You can create ships that act as deposits, so your harvesters don't have to go right back to the mothership each time, and protecting your harvesters will always be a priority. Particularly in Homeworld 1, you always seem to have plenty of resources. You're given a ton at the beginning of each mission, and I didn't find myself running out often. Though it's worth noting if you do run out, you can recycle ships and get some of their value back if you're desperate for another kind of ship or just want to reorganize your fleet. However, in Homeworld 2, the missions seem less generous with resources, making you think harder about what your harvesters are doing and how many you have. But ultimately, as long as you have a few harvesters up and running and don't waste the ships you've already built, there's not much more to the resources side of things. Research is minimal in the original Homeworld, but it's introduced to an extent in Homeworld 2. You can make ships faster or stronger, you can upgrade carriers so they can manufacture different classes of ship, but you're not getting a large tech tree. It's a nice addition, but pretty basic compared to something like Stellaris. Are you interested so far? In a moment, I'll describe the various game modes this game has to offer. But first, now we've looked at the big picture, let's examine the finer detail of the gameplay mechanics to give you a real feel for what a game of Homeworld is actually like. As your fleet stays with you throughout the game, your bigger ships jump into hyperspace themselves, whereas the smaller craft hitch a ride with the mothership and spill out of her at the beginning of a mission like a seahorse giving birth. As you create new units, you'll see them coming out of a docking bay in the side of the mothership, which is a really cool detail. Although you may often find your fleet wiped out, you can usually build an entirely new one, but this process takes time as your mothership can only build so many at a time, and that's assuming you have enough resources to do so. But once each new ship is ready, it'll spill out of the mothership ready for orders. One by one, your fleet will swell in size. There's no off-map support or magical powers to make ships appear out of thin air. Although there's not much in the way of cover or terrain in Homeworld, vision is incredibly important. Your spherical ship's sensors can only go so far, making scouting with ships or sending out probes absolutely essential. As with any RTS, if you can see your opponent is spamming a certain unit, you can prepare to melt them with the counter to that unit. When it comes to your units landing hits, there is a noticeable amount of RNG at work. Noticeable because sometimes your ships can be sat there shooting at a stationary target and miss. Over and over and over again. But in the grand scheme of things, it's only noticeable when you use a magnifying glass on a specific unit. However, most of your time will be spent commanding grand battles where the individual shots aren't all that noticeable. You can't escape RNG, but the damage it does to the game is on the whole minimal and won't be noticed by casual players. The units look great in the remastered version, and the level of detail as you see the fighters weave around while dogfighting and the harvesters dock with the mothership to drop off resources is stunning. Although the smaller fighters do end up feeling somewhat useless, if you're remotely interested in Star Trek or Star Wars, there's a lot for you to like in Homeworld. Except for the occasional artsy hand-drawn thing, the cutscenes are in the game's engine, with voices coming out of the ships.
Like theirs, your ship has already defiled this holy place.
This turns them into the actors driving the campaign forwards. Combined with the tense music, this can create sickeningly tense moments, like when a diplomat ship docks with an unknown alien ship, and you don't know whether it's going to be a nice cuddly Star Wars ending or a messy bitey one from Aliens. The AI in Homeworld is a surprisingly rage-inducing subject that has been discussed at length for many years, so I will simply say this. I personally experienced no problems with the AI as I progressed through the campaigns. If you have a particular interest in the AI, then there are many articles online that discuss it in more detail than I ever could. So let's move on. The sound effects are spot on, whether it's engines firing up, ambient alarm from the mothership, or weapons and explosions blasting away. They're clear, they're crisp, and they're the perfect fit for the game. Of particular note are the comms from your units. They sound awesome, and they're genuinely useful feedback that successfully immerses you into the role of Space Admiral man or woman. The soundtrack itself is like one of those 3-hour ambient chill-out videos you get on YouTube, keeping you on edge throughout the campaign, but it's the main theme of the original Homeworld that takes it to the next level. Whenever there's an emotional moment, there are plenty of them, we hear Agnus Dei, a choral arrangement for Adagio for strings written by Samuel Barber. Combining this powerful and emotional piece of music with the grand themes of the original Homeworld was a stroke of genius. If you like zooming in and zooming out, you're going to love Homeworld. You can select and follow individual units, both large and small, zooming right up close to see every detail of the ship, or you can zoom right out to see the huge empty expanse to command your ships at fleet level. The game is gorgeous, even by today's standards. By now you've got a good idea of how the game plays and the basics of the mechanics, so let's examine how the game lets you use all of this in the various game modes. The pacing of the story is probably the best I've ever seen in an RTS game, like a book that drops a bombshell at the end of each chapter, forcing you to stay up late to read the next. Homeworld will keep you hooked. Each mission pushes you to perfect a different mechanic or unit. Though salvage corvettes seem overpowered, it's a bit like a bunch of priests from Age of Empires tackling enemy units to the ground before dragging them back to your town centre to convert them to your cause. For many, the single-player campaign is the main event in both Homeworld games. It's not convoluted, it just makes sense and is easy to follow. However, Homeworld 2 doesn't quite reach the dizzying heights of Homeworld 1, but that's a damn difficult act to follow. Skirmish mode is exactly what you would expect. Very standard options for the setup, and you have to gather resources quickly, research better ships, etc, etc. It's everything I've already described, but in a very familiar RTS skirmish setting. There's also an extra missions section, which comes with literally one mission that'll take you maybe 15 minutes to complete. Nothing to write home about. I don't want to be overly harsh here, but the online multiplayer is dead. Perhaps it's possible to find the occasional game, but if you want a regular and reliable online multiplayer experience, Homeworld Remastered isn't going to provide you with that consistently. I've played this game for a little over 15 hours now, and this is what I would say to somebody considering purchasing the game. The campaigns are something every RTS gamer should experience at least once. With 16 missions and 15 missions respectively, they'll keep you busy for a while, and there is replayability there, as you try to find ways to complete certain missions by saving more civilians than last time, or capturing that gigantic enemy ship just for the hell of it. The skirmish against the AI is fine, but won't change your life. Currently the full price of the game is $35, £27 or €32, but you can forget about that as the game is regularly on sale with a 90% discount, bringing the price down to just $3.50, £2.70 or €3. That sales price for this game, or games, is an absolute bargain. The only thing that might hamper your experience is getting the hang of those 3D controls, but I'm going to create a separate video that tells you exactly how to do it, so keep an eye out for that if you do purchase the game. DLCs? There aren't any. Well, that was easy. But there are a ton of mods, so let's dive into those before our final summary. If you look on the Steam Workshop, you'll find many mods turning Homeworld into Star Wars, Mass Effect, Battlestar Galactica, and more. Unfortunately, having tried to play some of them myself, many are out of date or simply don't work at all. I'm not saying there aren't any decent ones, but a lot of the articles or YouTube videos from a few years ago telling you which are the best mods are definitely out of date by now. I'm happy staying away from the mods, so just beware what you install, is all I'm going to say. So let's bring all of this together and answer the question, is Homeworld Remastered right for you today? Homeworld is 23 years old, and it's better quality than 99% of AAA games being released today. If you enjoy space-based RTS games, you have to play this game right now. If you like RTS games in general, perhaps you've dabbled in Empire at War in the past, you should also pick up this game. If online multiplayer is your main goal, Homeworld Remastered may not be right for you. If you're not a fan of RTS, but enjoy a game with a good story, Homeworld will give you that. The game is so cheap in the regular sales, it's worth taking the chance, and having done so myself, I couldn't be more excited for Homeworld 3. I hope you found this video useful, and if you have any questions, please ask me in the comments. I have plenty of other strategy and gaming content, so feel free to check that out too. If you're a veteran of Homeworld, thanks for watching, and please let me know your thoughts and corrections in the comments below. They're always welcome. Look out for my video including top tips for new Homeworld players. It'll be full of tips I wish I'd known when I first started the game. See ya.